Welcome to Coffee with the Candidates, Round 2, The Road to the General. This second portion of the program will feature candidates vying for public offices in the Guam legislature, the Attorney General's seat, congressional delegate, and the top seats of Governor and Lieutenant Governor of Guam. In this episode, the two candidates vying for the seat as the island's elected Attorney General, Attorney Leevin Camacho, and former AG Doug Moylan will join us on the other side of this.
Hafaday and welcome to Coffee with the Candidates. I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and joining us in this episode is Attorney General candidate Leevin Camacho. Welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so we're going to start off with some icebreaker questions. We do this to kind of get to know the candidates on a more personal level. Netflix, I'm pretty sure you watch Netflix. Yes?
When I get a chance.
When you get a chance, okay. When you do, what would we expect to see on your Netflix account?
Lately, I have a shared account. We have a one family account, so it's going to be between The Dragon Prince, which is, I guess, this anime thing very similar to Avatar, and gosh, I've been enjoying it too. So
oh, really?
Okay,
good, good.
If you liked Avatar, it's a pretty good show.
Yes, I do like Avatar. I'll check that out maybe. What about at a fiesta? What kind of calaguan would we see on your plate?
You know, I'm kind of picky. I don't like onions. So calaguan is always one of those struggles for me. But if I had to have one and it didn't have onions, I probably would go with shrimp calaguan.
Shrimp, okay. Because shrimp sometimes doesn't have onions in it.
Green onions I'm okay with, but white onions.
White onions. What is it? Is it like is it a certain taste?
It's a childhood trauma, you know. One of those things, right? So
that'll do it. Okay. What about music? What kind of music are you into?
Lately, I've been really into the musical Hamilton.
Oh.
So, and then I rotate between that and I like pop music still. Try to follow some of it, island music.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Broadway music, sort of.
You know, it's history presented with like a hip hop, so it's pretty unique, and you see the storyline run through. So it's like a novel. It is based on a novel, right?
Okay.
Biography. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Very interesting choice. Okay. Well. So we've gotten over the icebreaker questions. Now we're going to move on to more of the serious stuff. Okay. You are running for Attorney General.
Yes.
It's your first time running for this office, or for any office.
Yes.
Tell us why you decided to take on this challenge.
Sure. So I went to JFK, graduated, went off to Go Islanders. I went to college at the University of Washington, came back, but I always knew I wanted to come back home, and I always knew that I wanted to come back home. I wanted to figure out what exactly I would do. I was a literature major, so there wasn't really. I came back and I taught for a year.
Oh, so you didn't go there with the mindset that you were going to get a law degree right off the bat?
No, not at all. It was law was one. I came back and I taught for a year, and I really enjoyed it. I'd say it's probably one of the best years of my work experience. But I knew that maybe there was another way that I could give back to the island.
What did you teach? What subject?
So I was a literature major, but the only thing that was available was either ESL English or science.
Oh.
And I was in the combo quad at FB. So I taught earth science and life science to 7th and 8th graders, and I had a period of reading. Yes. So
that's cool.
It was always funny when the kids would ask me, why did you choose science? And you can't tell them I'm a literature major and I didn't pick science. This is all that was available. But I do like science. It just wasn't what I studied in college.
Sure.
So after teaching for a year, I did a year of social work in Seattle, studying for the LSAT, and then I went to school in Boston, came back home, and that was in 2005. So I've been in practice, give or take 13 years.
Okay. And
just being involved in the community and understanding that this elected position would be my next way to give back and to public service. And I'm excited about it. During
your 13 years in practice, can you talk about maybe some of the areas of law that you practice in?
I'm a litigator, so I do a lot. Criminal law has probably been about a third of my practice. I do family law, but my real passion has been in cases that I've met with you before in the past. So environmental law.
Right.
You have the Safe Southern Guam lawsuit. There's another land use commission thing. So I I took out a lot of debt to go to law school, and you have to pay the bills.
Of course.
But then you have the things that you really you enjoy doing. So the pro bono work for me has really been the highlight.
Oh, wow.
And it's again been one of the things that has driven me to looking at running for Attorney General.
I see. Yeah. So you kind of are known for some of those major cases that you were successful in, like the Save Southern Guam, the Paget case. And as you mentioned, environmental has sort of been like sort of the focus of that. Any other areas in law that maybe you had taken an interest in and maybe had a little bit of experience in as well?
I love constitutional law.
Okay.
So I know that Attorney General Barrett Anderson was on the news today talking about the plebiscite case and the 14th and 15th Amendment, how you apply it to the plebiscite statute. So those areas, I think anyone who goes to law school, intellectually, you like that type of stuff. But again, there aren't a ton of constitutional law cases that are going to pop up. So, lawyers have to pay bills too, and again, there's a lot.
Yeah.
If any of my kids want to go to law school, I need to start saving now because the tuition is just insane.
Yeah. And you have 2 boys, right?
I do have 2 kids. Yes.
2 cute boys
Yes.
and a beautiful wife, as your opponent says.
Yes, that is right.
I was wondering too, as you mentioned the plebiscite, and I kind of sense that you take on cases that defend our island, defend the territory. In terms of the plebiscite, this may not be necessarily a candidate for an attorney general type of question, but I mean, anybody can answer this. If you had to choose between or amongst the 3 choices for our political status, free association, independence, or statehood, which one of the 3 would you choose?
So my response is any of those 3 would be better than our current status.
Okay.
I can see the benefits, and that the commission is doing a much better job in terms of educating people on what the 3 options. The fact that you can name the 3, pretty solidly, just goes to show how much progress that we've made. When we were in high school, I'm much older than you, but being in high school, no one even could probably name.
Right.
So the plebiscite, in a weird way, this lawsuit has kind of raised awareness about what the 3 options are, and I think we can talk intelligently about statehood. We know what statehood is. Free association is one of those things where we don't really know, but I think we're getting a better idea of the benefits that it might have, and independence kind of being across the spectrum. You have independence, free association, and then you have statehood in terms of where we're going to be with our relationship with the United States.
Right,
so I would advocate any of the 3 over our current status as the territory.
Okay. Now going forward, if you are elected Attorney General, what would be, some of what would you focus on as an Attorney General?
The biggest issue for me now is, when you have female relatives who don't feel safe going to go grocery shopping, or you don't feel safe walking to your car at night, I think the community is feeling the shift that we don't feel safe in our homes and in our persons, and it's a big change, and you can't quite put your finger on why that feeling is becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, we read the news, you hear about it again. Guam shouldn't be like that, where you are afraid to go grocery shopping.
It wasn't like that.
That's right. So something needs to happen, and I think an Attorney General and the approach that I would bring, and we've talked about bringing something that you are tough and smart. So you're tough on the crimes that are serious, that you're going out and you're trying to forcibly take someone's purse from them, and then you have those types of offenses we need to punish severely. If that's what you're doing, you need to be put in jail. But then you have one of the other big problems on the island is drugs. The ice epidemic, and I believe that DOC has done a statistic like 30% of our prisoners are in there for drug-related offenses.
Right.
And I can understand if you're a drug dealer, you need to do serious time. But as someone who's been practicing criminal law now for like 12 years, I have seen many clients who are people who are getting caught with residue. Like a pipe in a purse or a pipe in a car, and they get caught again. And those people, maybe we don't need to be spending thousands of dollars every year putting them in jail, because that's not going to solve the root cause.
Right.
It's going to be getting them treatment. So one of the other things, in addition to punishing criminals severely, is you have to be smart about it. And like, how do we solve this crime problem, this ICE problem? We can't just do it by putting everyone in jail, or by putting them on planes and sending them off and saying you're not our problem anymore. Right. So I think the criminal justice system needs to change and evolve to meet the needs of our community.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of crimes in the community, the you're right, there's an ICE epidemic. Now cocaine's popping up again, being reintroduced to the island. You kind of mentioned, being a little bit tougher on punishment of certain crimes, well, with the exception of the small-time drug users, right? But how would you bridge that gap with your image as a candidate, being that a lot of the cases that you took on, the major cases at least, had to deal with environmental issues and defending our island, with say someone like Doug or Gary when he was running, I'm tough on crime, I'm tough on crime. How do you bridge that gap to kind of let your constituents know that, look, this is something I'm serious about as well, especially as someone who was a criminal litigator?
Yeah, you don't have to be a bully to be tough. And I think there's this idea that you need to be loud and aggressive in order to get the job done. And I'm a rule follower, and I will be tough if I'm given a chance to do that. So, we go in there, you have to charge the cases you know you're going to win. But I am, at the end of the day, a rule follower. So whether it's environmental law, and it's the government of Guam, the Department of Defense, whether it's you, whether it's me who's committing a crime, there are laws that are in place, and you're going to be punished and held accountable for your actions, again, whether or not you're a government or an individual. So I'm pretty consistent across the board. I'm boring. I mean, I think most people will tell you that my friends will laugh
I think that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I am.
Without just calling you so much as boring.
And I think sometimes you want that aggressive person who's going to show it. But I think the Attorney General's position, you need to be level-headed, you need to be rational, and there are rules that are in place, there are punishments that are going to be imposed, and you have to trust that the system is going to work and make sure everyone is treated fairly. That's what we want as an island community, to know that if it's you or me or anyone who's caught driving while under the influence of alcohol, we're going to face the same types of penalties, right? So that is my nature. I'm a rule follower to the T, and I promise that if I am elected, I'll make sure that I continue to do that.
Okay, all right. Well, we only have a few seconds left. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Coffee with the Candidates, and we wish you the best of luck on your campaign.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you. All right, well, when we come back, we'll have another candidate for Attorney General, Doug Moylan. Stay right there. Hafa and welcome back to Coffee with the Candidates. Again, I'm your host, Janella Carrera, and as promised, we brought you Doug Moylan. Doug, thank you so much for joining us on Coffee with the Candidates.
Thank you for having me here.
All right, so we're going to get started with some icebreaker questions, and this is kind of like questions to kind of get to know you more on a personal level. First of all, I hope you watch Netflix, because I'd like to know what kind of shows you watch on Netflix.
I got in under the $7.99 a month years ago. Lost in Space, that's one of the ones I like to watch, and then they have their assortment of movies. But
so it's more of like almost like a, what kind of, tell us about Lost in Space.
It's a sci-fi. It was based upon I think they started in the 50s, but then they did a remake, and I want to say in the 2000s, somewhere early 2000s. But they're now starting a series on it, so I thought it was, they did their first season series, which is quite interesting.
Oh, cool, okay. Yeah. All right, what about at a fiesta? What kind of calaguan would we see on your plate?
I'm not a spicy person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mom would always have the chamorro dishes, but I like the basic foods. Like
okay, so what kind of chamorro food?
Well, of course, the chickens.
Barbecue.
Anything that's barbecue, red rice.
Okay.
Potato salad, stuff like that.
That's weird. Both you and Leevin don't want calaguan on their plate.
We're both Taitanos too.
All right, and then what about music? What kind of music?
80s.
Okay.
Very
Are you an
80s?
80s?
I grew up during the 80s. High school, college was in the 80s.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So we got that out of the way. We're going to go to more of the serious questions. First of all, we'd like to point out that you were Attorney General. You've already held that office in the past, but you decided to run again after a period of years. Yes. What's the reason for that?
I think that with 28 years of experience now, and having been in the government in all three branches, that I'm more seasoned. I believe I'm wiser. I understand the way that things have been going on in Guam. I'm from Guam. My kids are growing up here. I believe that I can contribute a lot to our community. And I'm not going to relearn the curve. When I come in there, unlike, absent Elizabeth Barrett Anderson, judge and the current Attorney General, nobody has experience on a second run. So, and Liz is showing, she showed that she was pretty good AG the first time, and I think she seasoned her skills with all her years of experience. For lawyers, experience matters.
I see.
It really does. When you're a lawyer, you usually want the best lawyer that you can find, which is sometimes the meanest and the most tenacious, in order to win your case.
Would you say that during your first time in office as an Attorney General, that maybe your lack of experience might have affected your performance at the time?
There's things that I would have done differently, but that was the first elected Attorney General's office. And the ground rules had to be established. The governor was no longer the direct client as the appointed Attorney Generals would treat the governor. That created a lot of, because of the uncertainty and how Guam law would be applied, actually. The big bond case was the thing that kind of spoiled the water between the governor and my position at the time.
I see.
We ultimately won before the Guam Supreme Court, but in hindsight, there could have been other things that we should have done in order to ease up the pain of that first 4 years.
I see.
But in this term, and then quite frankly, all the AGs after that, because the ground rules were set by our Guam Supreme Court as well as the Ninth Circuit, I think that this term, for me, is going to be focused more about us working with the governor and the legislature to better the people of Guam's situation.
Right.
And that's my focus.
Okay. Speaking of bettering, the situation for our island, crime is on the rise. Drugs are everywhere. We hear about it in the news every day. What would you do as an Attorney General to bring that down?
Well, I've been both on both sides of the table, they say. I was the Attorney General, but even so, I was a defense lawyer, and I'm still a defense lawyer. I've tried felony and misdemeanor cases before juries, and you hit it right on the head. We have a drug problem on Guam that has to be fixed, and it's not just putting them in jail. We got to find a way that, they call it the adult drug court, but the recidivism rate is very high.
Right.
So we need to find a solution as a community to get people off this addiction. And it's not just Guam. We know it's in the United States, it's all over the world, quite frankly. So that's one aspect of it. Another big part of our problem on Guam are the I-93 immigrants.
Okay.
They are tapping our judicial resources, our law enforcement, our criminal justice system resources to the extent that they're depleting the ability of us helping our own people, the U.S. citizens on Guam.
I see.
And if elected as AG, I intend to have a very vigorous program on deporting these people, hand in hand with the victims of the crime and the governor, and especially Homeland Security, because they are the people, Homeland Defense, the ICE group, are the people in the federal government that actually take these individuals who have been convicted, either by plea agreement or by jury verdict, and then decide to deport them and to prevent them from coming back. The AG has a different role than what the governor is doing. The governor is actually commuting sentences, which means that if the federal government opens its doors again for these people, they're going to come right back in. If the Attorney General was involved, we can actually work on plea agreements that, again, with the victims, get the victims' consent involved in it, punish them for a part, send them out, and suspend a large part of the sentence, which means that if they do come back in the United States, they will be going right back into jail. And the computer systems are set up already that we should be able to track them once they try to get back in the United States, whether it's Guam, Hawaii, or the mainland.
I see. We do have deportation ongoing right now, even outside of what the governor is doing, right? So
that's Homeland Security, though. They're the ones that wait at the Department of Corrections. Once they've served their time, they exit, they pick up the FAS citizens, and then they deport them.
I see. So as the Attorney General, you'd create some sort of program.
Part of the plea agreements. That's the thing that glares out the most that we're not doing right now. Because a lot of those immigrants, the I-93, I call them I-93s, those are, and that's their immigration
because they can be from any country as long as,
Yes, but the I-93 is specifically identified as the FAS citizens.
I see.
So those people, we would, as part of the plea agreement, and they would sign it. And that's the beauty of it, is that they would actually agree to the terms of their release to be deported.
I see. And
you'd have two protections. One, it'd be the plea agreement. If they show up, they get put right back into DOC for a large part of the sentence. And then two, Homeland Security would probably not even allow them to try to come back in. So it'd be a double protection.
And if they fall through the cracks somehow and we catch them, then they just serve the rest of their sentence that was suspended.
Exactly.
Okay.
Unlike the commutation, which is the governor's doing.
It's gone.
It's gone.
You're basically forgiven.
Yes, and then it's up to the federal government. And that's why I'm saying, even if the federal government was wanting them to come back in, they can come back in and be a guest at DOC for us.
I see.
That's how we would do it in the AG's office.
I see. Okay. All right. Now, the plebiscite is a hot issue. It's been a hot issue for quite some time. We have a lawsuit in federal court. If you had the chance to pick and vote, what of the three choices would you choose? Free association, statehood, or independence?
I've always believed in a closer association with the United States. The statehood option, which apparently is one of the three that's on the table right now, would obviously be my choice personally. But the Attorney General has so much to do for purposes of helping our community go through all the hurdles that we need to go through, because much of that political question is entangled in the law, and we saw that in that lawsuit that you're talking about right now.
Right, okay. You have Gary now stumping for you, right?
He is my campaign manager.
Yes.
Has always been a very close friend of mine. He's got 30 years of experience. I've got 28, almost 60 years of experience together.
He came out, hitting hard. Was very tough. Said he would do in fact, now you are trying to get corruption buster on your name.
It's been accepted, yes.
It's been accepted?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
The Election Commission agreed with my interpretation. I served on the Election Commission for, I believe, about 6 years or more.
Oh, okay.
And
so
I
you knew.
I knew it was one of those that, it's a free speech issue. And they can't be regulating candidates because the voter can be informed, and the legislature has said, you have the right to put up to 20 characters, whatever you want.
Right.
But yeah, that's
why corruption buster? Tell us about that.
Well, when I was first elected as the Attorney General, not only is the Attorney General's office a creature of government corruption, because when Congressman Underwood put it in the Organic Act and made it elected, the office was they wanted to separate the Attorney General from the control of the governor. And at that time, they believed that there was corruption going on. When I took office, I ran on a platform of against corruption. When I took the office also, for the 4 years, we created the Government Corruption Division. We had about 26 convictions in the Government Corruption Division. Of the 4 trials that went to a jury trial, we won 3 of our 4 trials.
I see.
It resonates in our community because people don't like to see government officials taking the trust that's given them and abusing it. And I think that it continues to this day. And if I get elected, I am going to create the Government Corruption Division. We are going to staff it with a group of lawyers that are highly white-collar crime motivated and attuned to detecting that, in conjunction with the public auditor.
Okay.
Back when I was the Attorney General, we worked hand in hand with Doris Brooks. Now, former Justice B.J. Cruz, Senator, is now the public auditor, and I expect that if I'm elected, that him and I will be spending quite a bit of time analyzing these financial data that he will be responsible for interpreting.
Well, why is your focus on the corruption busting? Not to say that you're not focused on any other area that encompasses an Attorney General's job, right? Like fighting other types of crime, drugs and whatnot, street crime, violence.
Right.
But is there a reason why you wanted to focus a little bit more on corruption? Because to me that sounds like corruption would probably be 75% of your focus. What about other crimes out there in the community, especially the ones that are kind of coming up now, like violence and drugs and all that? Well,
the most important duty of any Attorney General is the prosecution arm and protecting us, especially in our homes. We see these viral videos that are going on. It's shocking, and I have to tell you, within the past month or so, I had to call 911 because there was about maybe 8 guys in front of my house starting to fight one another.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's how the Attorney General's primary duty is to protect our safety. And then you have all the other crimes that fall under that. The Attorney General carries a civil, a civil hat and then a criminal side hat because he's a prosecutor, public prosecutor. So the government corruption is a white-collar type crime. It's not normally a violent area, but the ones that you're talking about deal with either domestic violence, you have your drugs, you have your crimes of property, the whole scheme of things that you see on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So that among many will be the priorities. I've also talked about the child support, and I'm trying to find areas that are important for everybody in our community. Because when you say government corruption, it's kind of esoteric. You know, you see it, oh, our tax dollars are being misspent. But when you see somebody just got their house broken into, their car's been broken into, it's more on a one-on-one person type of issue, as is child support.
Okay.
So I expect to, again, increase our child support collections and work to have the custodial parents and the non-custodial parents get our investigators and our attorneys working for them.
Okay, all right. Well, we're all out of time. I wish we could do some more talking, but we really thank you for joining us on Coffee with the Candidates, and we wish you the best of luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that's it for Coffee with the Candidates at this episode. Join us again next time. I'm Janella Carrera. Good night.